sit up a little bit straighter. That way I can get better airflow. All right. Hello to all my IPF warriors and all my carnivore dieting friends. Listen, whether you're battling pulmonary fibrosis yourself or supporting a loved one through this journey, I want to extend a warm welcome to our channel. I'm hoping to be able to provide you with some guidance, some support, and a sense of community every step of the way, especially if you have pulmonary fibrosis and if you're considering alternative ways of dealing with your disease. And I mean either supplemental to Western medicine, the pills, or whether you're thinking about removing yourself from all of the medications. Whatever you decide, I'm hoping that in this channel I'll be able to inspire you, provide some information, support, and certainly if you would like some prayer, I would love to pray for you as well. So I was asked a question in a comment and in some feedback from one of my videos. I think this is a really good question, and I'm going to address it here. So the question was, what was your oxygen level before and in fibrosis, the saturation drops on walking or any activity? How was it in your case now and before switching to low carb, or the carnivore diet really is what I would prefer to say that I'm on. When I was in the hospital, at my worst, I was on between 90 and 92 liters of high flow oxygen. When they would take me off of that high flow oxygen, it would only be for a short duration, to change the bedding, to wash and clean me, to maybe having to turn me over and move my cables, all the lines that were attached to me. Kudos to the hospital staff, because they were quick, they were efficient, they were kind, and they really considered the position I was in. However, even in those short, maybe 90 seconds, maybe less than that, my O2 levels would fall probably, I think they said it was in the low 50s. It was very quick. They would very quickly get me back on the cannula, the high flow, and my recovery would still take 5 to 8 minutes, maybe a little longer. The reason being is because at this point I'm experiencing high anxiety. I'm in serious panic attacks. I am struggling to gasp for air. And I apologize to anyone that is listening to this and starting to cough or feel like you need to get breath in, because I know that's how I feel when I was going through these notes and looking back at my time. I get like that. I start to feel the anxiety. I remember that anxiety and those panic attacks. It's horrible. It is so scary to feel like you're struggling, or to know that you're struggling to breathe, and you are working so hard to get that full gasp of air in. And so because of that, my recovery would take 5, 8, 10 minutes, and it would require a nurse or a couple of nurses to be next to me and help me calm down and to encourage me to try to slow my breathing and to calm down. It was horrible. I was at a point where they wanted to intubate me, where they wanted to put me on a ventilator. They had told my wife that my body and my lungs were working way too hard to try to sustain my oxygen and to try to breathe. If you don't have pulmonary fibrosis, imagine taking very, very shallow breaths. And I mean just one very shallow breath where you are just enough to keep you conscious, but also right at that border to where if you don't breathe a little bit more, you're gonna panic. That is pulmonary fibrosis. At this point in my life, when this was happening to me, that was me for 60 days, slowly getting better, but it was the best I could do was to take a shallow breath, no matter how deep I tried to bring air into my lungs. And the reason being is because I only had 30% capacity in my left lung. My right lung was completely closed off. I was on the verge of death. After I think 11 days or 10 days in the hospital, they had told my wife, he's not going to live through the night. So that was at my worst. Praise the Lord, I'm here today. When I left the hospital, after 72 days, I was finally to a point where I could leave the hospital requiring minimum 5 liters of supplemental oxygen. I had to get to that level because the home concentrator unit at a max would only put out 5 liters of oxygen. So when I got to that point, left the hospital, my O2 level would be at about 92, 95% with that supplemental oxygen. Any kind of exertion. That means getting up from my wheelchair, standing up, and just scooting to get into the car. My O2 level I would desaturate to mid to high 70s, and panic sets in, and it would take a little time to recover. You can't turn up the oxygen. That's where one of the anxieties and the panic comes in, because you can't turn that oxygen up anymore. You're at 5%. That's your maximum. You have to depend on your anxiety meds to help you. It's embarrassing. It's demoralizing. It's very humbling experience to struggle so badly just to breathe, not to be able to do almost anything. Exertion for me was trying to stand up. Exertion for me was taking a shower. I had to have a chair in the shower so I could sit down and shower. I had to be bathed and washed. I needed my wife to help me do that, because trying to move around and wash yourself was exertion. It required constant tethering to the concentrator. You've got that 50-foot cannula hose, that green hose that you got going across the house. I was always anchored to that concentrator. Granted, it was on wheels, but I sure didn't have the strength to move it around or push it around. So that had to be on my nose and around me the entire time for a couple of years. Again, any exertion with the supplemental oxygen, those 5 liters that I was on, my O2 levels would dip into high 70s, low 80s, and recovery took a little time. After about a year and a half of just repetitive motion, daily showers, going to the restroom, that was movement, that was activity, because you had to sit down, you had to stand back up. Getting up from the couch or a recliner, that's exercise. That's strenuous exercise to somebody with pulmonary fibrosis. So many people take that for granted. We don't even think about it. But that is exertion. Walking from one room to the next, that is strenuous activity to a person with pulmonary fibrosis. So after about a year and a half, I began to get better. I began to feel better again through the repetitive motion, through the just daily action, and primarily because of the grace of God and His healing, I began to get better. Now, prior to the carnivore diet, I had gotten to a point where I only used supplemental oxygen when I was sleeping or when I was doing any kind of activity outside. At this point, we're talking 2.5 years later, maybe 2 years, about 2.5 years later, I was able to go outside, do some light work, do a little bit of mowing, not much, checking my oximeter to see what my O2 levels were. I could maintain my O2 levels at low 90s to the mid 90s, feel pretty comfortable, and do some work. I could go to the mall, I could go to, school events, I could go to, grocery shopping. Some of those stores, they have those carts that you can ride on. It's got the little basket on. I could ride on those and I could walk for a little bit and, get into a point where daily activity was not so bad. And even to a point where I did not need to be tethered all the time to a concentrator. And you know what that's like. You know what it's like having to carry that green tank around, and not just one, but two of them. You carry one, and you got it on this pack here, or maybe you've got it next to your wheelchair or your little walker, the walker on wheels. And depending on how much exertion you were doing, if you were walking a lot, it required a lot of breathing. You would go through that tank pretty quickly, hour and a half maybe, and you had better make sure you've got a second or third tank available just in case. That way you could swap them out and continue to go. Eventually, I got to the point where I was able to get a portable concentrator, and I didn't need to have that green tank anymore, which was nice. And then all you had to carry was, a little backpack with your concentrator that kept you with about 2.5 liters of oxygen, supplemental oxygen. And that worked great. Concerts, man, I was able to go to concerts. Wonderful. It was wonderful to experience a little bit of freedom again and not have to be tethered to a 50-foot cannula hose at home. So I did begin to get better. Along with that, I also put on a lot of weight. The lack of activity, the medications that increase weight as a side effect, the medications that cause you to be drowsy and sleepy. Look, I'm not going to go into all that at this video, but come on, you know what I'm talking about. So I got to a point where I was 234 pounds and I was heavy. I was very unhealthy, and that just added to the problems with my pulmonary fibrosis. And after looking and researching all kinds of diets, I stumbled upon the carnivore diet, and I couldn't believe it. You increase your red meats. In fact, your lifestyle becomes red meats. That's your primary source of food. Fats. Increase your fats. All these things you have been told to stay away from because they're unhealthy for you. But the thing that sold it on me was you could eat all the bacon you wanted. Yes, I could eat all the bacon I wanted. I love eggs and bacon. I love bacon and eggs. I love bacon and bacon. So my wife agreed, even though it was completely ridiculous, to let me try this diet for 2 weeks. Okay, you want to try the diet? Let's just see what happens, because you're not doing anything else. Nothing else was really working for me. The Mediterranean, the paleo, or however you pronounce it, the Hollywood diet that you get in a juice bottle at the Walmart, they weren't cutting it. And even the Atkins. Listen, what I did with that, I thought, yeah, I could do the Atkins, because they have all these desserts, all these candy bars that I can do the Atkins. I put on more weight, so that did not work for me. So we settled on the carnivore, and I cannot believe the results that took place in the first week. It was amazing, the immediate weight loss that took place, from 234 to 220, I think, 221, something like that. Granted, it might have been mostly water weight, yeah, but you know what? It was progress. It was weight loss. The other thing that came with that was a surge in energy. With the weight loss, with the surge in energy, something else that came along was not requiring supplemental oxygen all the time. In fact, it became less and less and less, to a point now where I can go outside, I can build a carport. I am building a carport. I'm going up and down ladders. I'm walking across our roof. I've installed mini splits in our house. Folks, I'm working again. I am active, and I'm doing all this without being tethered to supplemental oxygen. So I keep my oximeter close. I got one on my watch too, and my O2 levels without supplemental oxygen while I'm being active hover around 92 and 95. Yeah, they do. I take my rests, I take my breaks when I need it. I can feel it, when I need to just slow down for a moment or when I need to stop. But it is so liberating to be untethered, to not have to walk around with a concentrator on my back or on my shoulder. These are things I did not really expect. I just wanted to lose weight. I wanted to at least get my pant size, my waist size a little bit smaller. Now, there was a time about, I think it was early last week or the week before, that I did not pay attention to the temperature outside, and this is important. The temperature outside, it was a beautiful sunny day. It was 91 degrees, quite warm, and the humidity level was about 70%. I was out there working. I probably got in a good full hour, maybe a little bit more, and then I got to a point where I was about to pass out. I felt like I was going to pass out. I didn't even notice at first because I was so consumed by the work I was doing. Heart beating very, very heavy. I'm sweating like crazy. I went inside, sat down, enjoyed that cool air, took my pulse, and my pulse, not my pulse, my O2, I'm sorry. My O2 level was in the high 70s. Yeah, it was a stark reminder that, Rob, you do have pulmonary fibrosis still. You got to pay attention to these things. Recovery time, 30, 45 seconds. I was back into the high 90s. I did put my oxygen on. In fact, I left it on for maybe 10, 15 minutes. That was it. And then decided I've recovered. I'm going to go back at it. So went outside again, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. That was it. My body had said, hey, that's enough. That's it. Congratulations on your hour, but that's it. Time to go back in. You've had enough. So I came back inside. Again, my O2 level had dropped in just 3 to 5 minutes. I was in the high 80s. Put my oxygen back on, left it on for about an hour because it felt good. I had almost forgotten how good that extra oxygen feels because I hadn't used it in so long. So I enjoyed it. I sat there, I relaxed, I recovered. I was fine. There has been such a dramatic change. And I hope that as you listen to this, it's encouraging you, it's inspiring you. That's what I want to do. I want to give you hope. I don't want you to surrender to this disease. Do not surrender. I believe the body wants to heal itself. It does. And I think that diet has a lot to do with it. I have gotten off my medications. That's going to be in another video where I'm going to talk about the medications I was on and what I'm taking now. But I'm going to end this one today as I've discussed mostly just my O2 levels before and where I am now. And I hope, again, like I said, I hope it encourages you. So listen, God bless you. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. I'd love to address them. Comments, feedback, please leave them for me. I love hearing from you guys. Finally, also, if you want prayer, if you need prayer, if you believe in prayer, because I believe in prayer, then I would love to pray for you. Just let me know, and we'll end this video for today. Take care, guys. IPF Warriors for life. Got it. Bye-bye. God bless you.